I'm Indy, and this is Out of the Trenches, where I sit here in the chair of wisdom and answer all your questions about the First World War. Tyler Button writes, what role did Native American people take in the war? Well, Native Americans were not considered to be U.S. citizens at the outbreak of the Great War, so they were exempted from any drafts. But in spite of this, around 10,000 joined the U.S. Army. The Onondaga Nation of the Iroquois Confederacy went a step further, actually, and declared war on Germany as they claimed tribe members had been mistreated in Berlin at the beginning of hostilities. Many did see this as an opportunity to carry on the warrior traditions of their forefathers. During the war, it was common for both sides to tap each other's phone lines and eavesdrop on conversations, and Native Americans provided, which you've probably heard about, a novel solution to the problem of conveying orders and informations without the Germans knowing what they were saying, like when one regiment just used the Choctaw language to transmit messages regarding troop movements, baffling the Germans. A lot of new vocabulary did have to be invented, like machine gun and hand grenade, but it made it pretty near impossible for the Germans to understand anything that was being said. Because of their contributions during the war, Congress passed a law in 1919 granting all who had served in the Army full United States citizenship. Jackson Heath writes, were there any sort of noteworthy superstitions among troops in the war? For instance, did any notable number of troops believe things like particular colors were unlucky, or that wearing certain items or doing certain things before battle prevented them from being hit? Yes, lots and lots of soldiers in the Great War were seriously superstitious. Many carried special talismans like crucifixes or rabbit's feet, which they would look to in times of heated conflict. Others believed that singing or humming during bombardment would keep them safe from harm. These small rituals would give the soldiers a sense of control of their situation and that they could ward off death, even though the reality was, of course, far from that. A lot of superstitions and visions tapped into biblical and religious beliefs. Many soldiers claimed to see apparitions of the Virgin Mary or Jesus Christ walking across the battlefield. One of the most famous of these visions is the Angel of Mons, who protected the retreating British from the Germans in August 1914. On the Eastern Front, Russian peasant soldiers claimed to be protected from the enemy by a white horseman. Another popular British myth surrounded the statue of the Madonna at Albert. The statue had taken a hit from a shell and was hanging precariously from the steeple of a church. A story began circulating among the Tommies that the war would end when the statue fell. This resulted in many British soldiers shooting at the statue to hasten its fall. It finally fell in 1918 after the Germans had captured Albert in the spring offensive, and the British artillery tried to shell them out again. Logan Halling says, I'm curious to know if any armies went out of their way to look cool and intimidating. I don't really know how to phrase that question. I've just always wondered. No, you phrased it well. There were many examples of such psychological warfare in the Great War, especially in the air. Many pilots had camouflage paint on their aircraft, but German ace pilots, like the Red Baron, would often paint their planes in bright colors. This was to let the enemy know that the man in that machine was an expert pilot, and they would consequently be frightened and intimidated. Zeppelins were also a great psychological weapon. Their bombing campaigns in Britain didn't destroy targets as much as, you'd expect like in the Second World War, but they were terrifying to look at, and they put the fear of God into the general public in Britain and France. Their deployment was designed to crush the morale and resolve of the populations of those countries. British officers would often paint eyes on each side of their tanks, as you see in like ancient Greek triremes, right? This was also to intimidate the enemy. Even the Pickelhaube, the spiky helmets the Germans wore at the beginning of the war, they were designed not just to protect the head from a cavalry saber, but also to put fear into the enemy when they would see an army of spiked helmets marching towards them. Speaking of Zeppelins, if you'd like to see our special episode about Zeppelins, you can click right here for that. Do not forget to subscribe, and we'll see you soon.